was born in a place in the United States called McKeesport, Pennsylvania. That was only in a dream. For in reality, I'm from Jerusalem, and I was exiled by Titus 2,000 years ago.
It's not by the government, it's by the people now.
Each neighborhood here is controlled by another terrorist organization. My neighborhood is controlled by Fatah. A friend of mine who lived in the old city, his name was Elchanan Atal. He was murdered in what they call the Muslim Quarter. And as a result of his murder, immediately we started reclaiming Jewish properties all over the old city. Today, there are over 1,000 Jews living in what they call the Muslim Quarter because of that. But once you're in our gates, we have zero crime. We don't lock our doors. Kids walk around 24 hours a day unsupervised. We have a playground, a petting zoo, a library, 3 kindergarten nursery schools. It was law here for 19 years and continues to be the unwritten law that any Arab that sells the property to a Jew gets the death penalty here.
So that building, the owner of it was killed after selling it?
His whole family was killed, yes.
His whole family?
This is a mass grave. In 1948, there were Holocaust survivors. They were given guns and said that to defend the old city.
People who came here, just like my grandparents, they didn't even know their birth date. They didn't have their documents, they didn't have anything. They were kicked out of the places they came from, some through a Holocaust, some through ethnic cleansing campaigns in the Arab world, and got here literally like babies to a fresh new start of either survive or die.
The first conference of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was held here. When people suggest to me that there's some sort of connection between the Israeli-Arab conflict and refugees or settlements, I always ask them why 3 years before that all existed, they were already vowing to wipe us off the map.
Thank you to my patrons on Patreon for funding my content. I cannot make these videos without your support, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, patrons. You're the best.
Shalom Chaverim, and welcome back to Jerusalem. I'm here right above the old city on the Mount of Olives. We are in one of the most contested places in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I've been invited to come tour one of the last remaining Jewish communities on this mountain that is full of history. This is my new friend Josh. What's up, Josh?
Hi, Tal.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. Who are you? What are you doing on the Mount of Olives?
This is my home. I live here.
And are you originally from here? Were you born and raised on the Mount of Olives?
So it's funny you should ask that. Right behind us is buried a Nobel Prize laureate by the name of Shai Agnon. He won the first Israeli to win a Nobel Prize in literature. And when he went to collect his Nobel Prize from the King of Sweden, the king came over to Shai Agnon and said to him, "Where are you from?" And without hesitation, he answered that I was born in a small town in Russia, in Bochach. But he said that was only in a dream. For in reality, I'm from Jerusalem, and I was exiled by Titus 2,000 years ago. So we're all from here. We just got lost in different places in the exile. I was born in a place in the United States called McKeesport, Pennsylvania, but I've been living around the old city for close to 40 years. The flag that's flying down there, I don't know if you're going to capture it on film, that's my house. So I live right down there. I live in one, like I said, one of the 5 thriving Jewish communities. We have about 1,000 Jews in our community.
Amazing, Josh. Well, I'm excited to tour this community. I'm really excited to get to know them on a deeper level, hopefully, today.
We're going through the large temporary Arab population that's called Atur. Atur has a very hostile Arab population here.
So they're all Israeli citizens, but extreme. Oh, they're not.
1967, as we mentioned before, the city was annexed. According to international law, they were all offered citizenship, and 98% of them rejected accepting the Israeli citizenship because they didn't want to look like they were collaborating with the Israelis, with the Zionists. So instead, they came to a compromise and they accepted what's called Jerusalem residency. Jerusalem residency basically gives them all the rights of Israeli citizens except for a couple, and so they have Israeli yellow plates and Israeli identity cards, blue identity cards, but they're not Israeli citizens.
They're not Israeli citizens
for the most part.
And you're saying they're extremely hostile towards Jewish people or anybody who comes in here?
No, Jews.
Jews.
Yeah, Jews.
It's an anti-Semitic population.
Very anti-Semitic. If you said that to an Arab, of course their immediate reaction would be, "We're also Semites, so you can't call us anti-Semites." But yes, they're very anti-Jew.
Do you feel comfortable making a video like this, saying the things that you're saying right now, knowing that there's a chance that people in your immediate neighborhood might see it, might recognize you? It doesn't scare you in the slightest?
They all know me, and we all know them. And, we have an understanding together. So I grew up in all 4 quarters of the old city. How did I wind up in all 4 quarters? So when I was About 35 years ago, a friend of mine who lived in the old city, his name was Elchanan Atali, Hashem Yikom Damo. He was murdered in what they call the Muslim Quarter. And as a result of his murder, his friends and family got together to discuss what we're going to do in response to his murder. And we came to the conclusion that the goal of terrorism is in order to scare us away, and we're not going to allow the terrorists to be victorious. So instead of being scared away, we're going to do the exact opposite, and we're going to be stronger than ever. So immediately we started reclaiming Jewish properties all over the old city. Today there are over 1,000 Jews living in what they call the Muslim Quarter because of that. So the point is that we can't show fear. You can't be scared. You have to show that this is our land and be very clear. I'm very vocal about it. My neighbors are equally vocal. I once had a conversation, was with a friend of mine, and he was like shocked because he had this conversation, and our neighbors very calmly were telling us, we can't wait until ISIS takes over and wipes you guys out. Just like a friendly neighborhood chat. Okay, so we understand each other. We understand which sides we're on, and we're not scared of each other. That's not a thing that we're scared of each other. But we know how to deal with each other.
That is tense.
Yeah.
That is tense. That's a far cry away from an American neighbor telling you that you need to mow your lawn because it's against coding. I want to ask you a question as we're walking through. I'm just kind of paying attention to the scenery of this place. I know a little bit about the Mount of Olives. I would classify it as somebody who's not knowledgeable as you guys are Jewish people living inside of what is considered a Palestinian neighborhood. I see a lot of barbed wire, a lot of fences. Is it safe here? Are you guys safe living in this area, considering the conflict?
There's a very large temporary Arab population here. As Jews move during the ingathering of the exiles from around the world, they move out. It's part of the transfer of populations agreement we have with them. We're just waiting for all the Jews around the world to come and join us at home.
Are you actively looking for people to come live here? Like for Jewish people to come live?
We are looking to bring the other half of the Jewish people home, which is something that I am very passionate about and work every day on. I have an organization that deals with Aliyah and bringing Jews home. It's actually called Bring Them Home and has nothing to do with the hostages. I had the name before the hostages. But it has to do with the Jews around the world that it's time to bring them home. This exile is not going to end any different than any other exile in Jewish history. Unfortunately, we always figure it out too late. And we're experiencing right now, and this is what's happened. The ground's shaking. People are trying to figure out, since they don't know about the centrality of Israel, they're trying to figure out, should we run away to Florida or to Texas, because Israel's not even on the radar. There are places like France where they realize all French Jewry understand that it's time to leave. And they, for the most part, all speak Hebrew, so it's much easier for them to transition than it is for the Jews of North America.
So Josh, I just asked you to pull down the window so I could get this shot, and you said when the window's up, it's rock-proof?
Correct. It's rock-resistant, I should say. The government offers all the Jews that are living in Judea, Samaria, and on the eastern side of Jerusalem the opportunity to armor their cars, because unfortunately there are a lot of incidents here of the Arab population throwing rocks and shooting at vehicles. So most of the Jews here travel with, we've replaced our regular windows with very heavy plexiglass, which stops rocks from coming through the windows.
Wow. Zionist funded rock-proof windows. You learn something new every day.
It's part of the whole process of putting band-aids on the problem. Instead of actually dealing with the problem, we keep putting band-aids on the problem. But same thing with the Iron Dome. If we didn't have Iron Dome, so our neighborhood is called Ma'aleh Hazeitim. You know, I call it a gated community. My oldest son calls it a refugee camp. It's a matter of perspective. But once you're in our gates, we have zero crime. We don't lock our doors. Kids walk around 24 hours a day unsupervised. We have government security right here on the outside. Everybody's armed on the inside. So unlike places like Poway or Pittsburgh, where you can walk into a synagogue and start massacring Jews and they're not aware of their threats or able to deal with them, we're very aware of our threats and able to deal with them.
And the community is a building, or?
We're going to see now.
Okay. How many people live here?
There's about 170 families, about 1,000 Jews altogether.
About 1,000?
With all the kids, it's a younger community, a lot of kids.
A lot of families.
Yeah.
Oh wow. This is
So the community started about 25 years ago. A couple years after that, we built the first phase of the community, which are the 3 buildings behind us over here. And then after that, we built, a couple years later, the next phase, which are the 3 buildings over here. Mine's the one with the big Israeli flag on top. We have a playground, a petting zoo, a library, 3 kindergarten, nursery schools. We're in the process now of building this this building over here, which is going to house our permanent Ashkenazi, Sephardic synagogues.
and you've got a mix of Jewish ethnicities in here?
Yes.
Sephardi, Mizrahi, Sephardic, Ashkenazi?
Like I said, we don't categorize ourselves.
We don't
like
do
that.
classifications here.
We're all Jewish. We all came from the land of Israel, and then we were sent in different places in exile. But we're not proud of the fact that we were in exile, and that's not how we identify ourselves from our exile existence.
Josh, this is so cool. Like, this is I don't know how to explain exactly what I feel when we came in here, but it kind of felt like outside it was like a zombie apocalypse a little bit, and then you enter here and it's like
Let's walk over to
a breath of fresh air. It feels like normal Israeli society in a way.
We are very proud and happy here to be here. We have, if you came here on a Shabbat Saturday afternoon, you see hundreds and hundreds of kids out here playing. It is all one big happy family.
This is it literally feels like a compound, like a safe Jewish compound. Israeli flags going, we're super clean. It looks like brand new. It's not brand new, right? It's been here for a few decades.
25 years.
25 years. But it looks like, you know, super clean, super beautiful.
So this area actually, there were 2 sections of the cemetery that under the Ottoman Turks, they banned Jews from being buried further down the mountain, and it remained dormant for about 100 years. There's about a century that this is just an empty field, until a visionary by the name of Dr. Irving Moshkevitz came along. He offered to purchase the property from the 2 Jewish institutions that owned the property. One of them was Chabad, and they didn't know whether they were allowed to sell the property because the original donors put up the money for a cemetery, not for residential use. And they wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe asking for advice. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe, this makes more sense in Hebrew than in English, it's going to be hard to translate, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote them back and said that if the original donors put up the money for a Beit HaChaim, the way that you say a cemetery, one of the ways to say a cemetery in Hebrew is the house of life. So he says if they put up the money for a Beit HaChaim, for the house of life, then for sure they would give it to the living. And that was their permission to sell, and the rest is history. So,
Wow.
Across the way, like I said, is another Jewish community called Ma'alot David. As I mentioned on the way in, this building over here, this rectangular building, was an Ottoman Turkish, and then it was a British, and then an Israeli police, Jordanian, and then Israeli police station. When they blocked they put the security barrier up and blocked the road called Jericho Way, the main route is Jericho, with the security barrier, and rerouted it through Ma'ale Adumim. So they moved the police station over there, and this became Jewish apartments. We built this a couple years ago, another section on, it's called Kedma. And everything that's behind this fence over here, these are all Jewish homes. Right now, they're Jewish families living in these one-story homes, but they're eventually, we know that they have plans to tear down all these homes and to build apartment buildings. So hopefully there'll be hundreds and hundreds of more Jews living in this area. Welcome. Hello. So,
Wow.
this is our humble abode. The Vilna Gaon, a great rabbi that lived in Lithuania 250 years ago, sent his students to the land of Israel. We were followers of his. So we have a picture of him on the wall.
How about that? That looks pretty.
As well as Rav Kook, who was the first chief rabbi of Israel. That is actually an interesting story. In Washington, D.C., there is a museum called the Museum of the Bible. And they had these at the gift shop. And basically, what they said it was crushed stones from Jerusalem that they made into this, what looks like the menorah from the temple. And so I bought one from the gift shop over there and brought the stones back to Israel.
This has got to be my favorite thing I've seen so far in your house. I love this display case of shofars. Maybe you can explain to the audience what these are. So
these are horns. Some of them are ram's horns. Some of them are from ibex. This is a very rare one from an ibex. Ibex is an endangered species over here. This is blown in the temple on certain occasions, and this is it has a unique sound. I can blow it for you if you want.
Oh yeah.
We actually blow this every Friday. This is the way that we tell our neighborhood that it's Shabbat is coming, that the Sabbath is about to come in. So we blow one of the horns. This is a Yemenite version of the horn. This one is an African version of the horn, and we have other ones as well. But he wanted me to show you something. This is one of the pieces of the flooring of the temple.
Whoa!
It was originally white, and it's all black because it was completely destroyed during the destruction of the temple. So it was all burnt and blackened. So today it's more of a black stone.
How did
this
you...
is one of the mosaics. We don't discuss how the way. That's but without going into the details.
Love it. I have some things like that in my life too, where people ask me, how'd you get that? I'm like, we don't need to talk about it.
Like I said, when people ask about the dangers of where I live, I always tell them I don't know what you see when you open up your window in the morning, but we have a beautiful view of the Temple Mount outside of our window.
Oh my God.
Outside of our view.
That's amazing. What an amazing place to have a living room.
Right below us is actually a, how you say Moadon?
Club?
A club for the Fatah movement.
No.
So,
oh, this is already not the neighborhood.
Right.
Oh yeah, you can see the Arabic right there. So Fatah runs out of this building?
Yes.
Really?
Temporarily. It's all temporary.
Temporarily. Just to clarify, if you guys don't know what Fatah is, because there might be people who don't, it's one of the main Palestinian political movements, but also heavily support terrorism. They have a pay for slay program where they pay terrorists to kill Jewish people across this land.
I just want to mention a few things you're hearing.
What is that? Are those guns?
No, those are fireworks. Today is the day that the Arabs receive their results, their matriculation results from the Jordanian tests that they take for in high school, and they celebrate by either shooting off fireworks or shooting guns in the air. So throughout the day, I'm sure you'll be hearing lots of that. So let's talk a little bit about the view.
Sure.
So the myth that I try to dispel of all tourists that come here is that the Western Wall is the holiest place for the Jewish people.
Correct.
That's clearly not the case.
A common misconception.
Correct. The Talmud states that there are 10 different levels of holiness in the world. The lowest level of holiness is the land of Israel, and then it moves up to Jerusalem, walled cities in Israel, and then Jerusalem, and then it skips the Western Wall, and it goes to the next level, which is the Temple Mount, and then it continues up and up and up until it gets to the highest level, which is the place of the Holy of Holies. Our tradition is that under the Golden Dome is that place. It is known as the Dome of the Rock because underneath it is the foundation stone where the world was created from. Adam, the first man, was created from the Hebrew word Adamah. Adam is from Adamah, from the ground that was taken from that place. Cain and Abel, they fought each other, one killing the other over bringing sacrifices there. Noah's Ark lands on Mount Ararat, and he comes here to bring sacrifices. Abraham's on this mountain to your left after a 3-day trek from Beersheba. He stops over here and he looks out, V'yara Makom Rachok. He sees the place of Mount Moriah from afar, and he leaves Eliezer and Ishmael behind, and he comes here to do the binding of Isaac. Jacob falls asleep here, dreams of a ladder with angels going up and down the ladder. These are all biblical stories that I'm sure everybody's familiar with. The first and second temples were here, and the third soon to be here. This is the center of the world.
Soon to be.
Very soon. This is the center of the world, but it's also the peak of a mountain, the peak of Har HaMoriah, the Mount Moriah. And they built a huge man-made platform around the peak of the mountain, which we call the Temple Mount. That's the flat surface you see in front of you. It's being held up by 50 subterraneous caverns. There's huge arches under the ground that are holding up this platform. And in order to hold it up from the sides, you need to have retaining walls. One of those retaining walls is in the west, and it's known as the Western Wall, right? It's not the last remnant of the temple, not a remnant of all the temple. It is a retaining wall.
What is it like to live atop this mountain, to be in such a significant view of the most important place in Jewish history?
So we feel very privileged to live in such a special place in such a special time. Jews have dreamt for 2,000 years of being able just to see what we're not only seeing today, but living and building. You know, 3 times a day around the world, Jews pray for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. Not only are we able to pray that, but we're actually able to be active participants in the process of rebuilding Jerusalem. The cemetery here, the Jewish cemetery, is the oldest Jewish cemetery and one of the largest Jewish cemeteries in the world.
Wow.
It dates back 2,000, even 3,000 years in some places. It was used consistently for those 3,000 years, with the exception of 19. Between 1948 and 1967, it was under illegal Jordanian occupation. Not only did they not allow Jews to be buried here, but they destroyed over 45,000 Jewish graves.
Wow.
We're in the process of restoring those today. I actually heard firsthand from a custodian, an Arab custodian of the cemetery here. His name was Abed, and he told me the famous story of the Or HaChaim's tomb. When the Jordanians occupied the mountain, like I said, they destroyed an enormous amount of the cemetery in order to try to hide the Jewish presence over here. They brought bulldozers to basically plow all of the Jewish graves in that section down below, the old Sephardic section. And they were planning on making a parking lot and a gas station over there. They plowed thousands of graves, and they got to the grave of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, this great rabbi. And the bulldozer, as soon as it got to the grave, broke down. They came the next day, they fixed the bulldozer. They attempted a second time to plow the grave. On the second attempt, the bulldozer flipped over, and they had to bring a crane in order to pick it up, and they had to fix it. The third day, they tried a third time to bulldoze his grave, and this time, as they got to the grave, the bulldoze driver had a heart attack, and after that, they gave up trying to bulldoze his grave, and it was never destroyed. Right over here, there's a small area that is gated up, right on the corner with these graves. These are the Jews that were evicted from Gush Katif, from the Gaza Strip, in what they call the disengagement of Gaza. Not only did they remove all of the living Jews that were above the ground, but they removed all the dead Jews that were in the ground.
Wow.
And a lot of them were brought over here.
Do we know what is the oldest grave from here?
So the oldest legend grave tomb is that of the daughter of Pharaoh. Not the one that saved Moses, but the one that was married to King Solomon in the times of the First Temple. So we have a lot of First Temple tombs. Well, actually, we can go and see some of them. We have luminaries throughout Jewish. I always call it a treasure trove of Jewish history, from Nobel Prize laureates to great rabbis. They're all here. It's like anybody's.
So Kivrei Nevi'im, Tomb of the Prophets. Look at that. It's all Jewish gravestones.
You see they were destroyed, this first section right here.
My grandma was a Levi.
Okay. That's important to know whether you're allowed to go into the cemetery.
What would be the reason I wouldn't be allowed to enter if I was a Kohen here?
Kohanim are not allowed to go into cemeteries. They're not allowed to defile themselves to the dead. So they have to stay outside of the cemeteries all over the world. When we moved here, there were 3 families with the last name Cohen that were all Kohanim. And we differentiated between them, calling them Cohen 8, 10, and 16. That wasn't their addresses, but the number of kids they had. So just the Cohens alone, we had dozens of Kohanim. Today we probably have 100 Kohanim in our community. So yes, there's something very special about being a Kohen right across from where the temple stood and will stand. This is a mass grave.
Okay.
What's known in Hebrew as a Keva Achim. There were 70 Jews that were killed trying to defend the old city in 1948. And unfortunately, the old city fell to the Jordanians. 70 Jews were killed in that battle. Many of them were buried temporarily in the old city. There's a Jewish law that you're not allowed to bury people in the biblical boundaries of Jerusalem. but it was wartime, so there was no choice, and they buried them inside the old city. In 1967, after the liberation of Jerusalem, they brought all these remains here to the Mount of Olives, and they were reburied over here. The youngest Israeli soldier that is recognized to have fallen in battle is buried here. His name was Nissim Gini. He was 10 years old, a lookout for the Haganah.
Wow.
You can see the ID of serial number and 10 years old.
Wow.
Many of the people that were there were literally just came out of the Holocaust. So they're Holocaust, they were Holocaust survivors. They were given guns and said to defend the old city. They weren't professional soldiers, but you can see like here. These names don't have their parents' names. It doesn't have their birth dates. Their whole family were wiped out in Europe, so they didn't know anything about them other than their names. But you'll see people that are 10 years old. You'll see people in their 80s and 90s that are buried here. Like I said, everybody was trying to do their best to defend the old city. Unfortunately, it didn't work out in 1948. Something
that a lot of people don't know. I mean, this narrative that's put onto Jewish people that we came here with like a colonial mentality to come and conquer the land. I think a lot of people don't recognize that specific story that you just mentioned of like, there's a lot of people who came here, just like my grandparents. They didn't even know their birth date. They didn't have their documents. They didn't have anything. They were kicked out of the places they came from, some through a Holocaust, some through ethnic cleansing campaigns in the Arab world, and got here literally like babies to a fresh new start of either survive or die. There wasn't really a middle option, and liberating this place has always been a big part of that, because this is the center of spirituality and life of our entire nation. All right, so we're making it up to
Seven Arches Hotel.
Seven Arches.
Yeah, it used to be called the Intercontinental Hotel for many, many years. It's been renamed the Seven Arches Hotel. It was built in 1951 by King Hussein of Jordan. And in 1964, they had the first conference of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was held here.
Wow.
When people ask me or suggest to me that there's some sort of connection between the Israeli-Arab conflict and refugees or settlements, I always ask them why 3 years before that all existed, they were already vowing to wipe us off the map. It confuses a lot of people that don't know history.
And they did that in here. Nice. Is it me or is it awfully quiet here right now?
We're living in a very special time. So the Israeli government is very scared of the fact that the war that has begun in the south with Hamas and that is beginning in the north with Hezbollah is going to spread to the center of the country, to Judea, Samaria, Jerusalem.
We are right now in a very, very sort of heated area, per se, no?
We are in a heat. I don't feel heated at all. Besides, and in fact, even temperature-wise, it's pretty. It's pretty.
It's actually not that bad today.
Yeah. We're also on a mountain, so we get a nice breeze. But I mean, I feel very comfortable here. This is my home. I have 6 kids that feel very comfortable walking around here. But your average tourist usually is nervous coming here. There are incidences that happen here, or have happened here on a regular basis, including harassment and attacks of tourists that come here, desecration of the graves here. So there are different challenges of living here, but for us, this is our home.
And then you were saying that this road has significance for Kohanim in...
So we call it Ma'aleh HaKohanim, the Kohen path, because from ancient times this is recognized as a Kohen safe road to go on, because again there are no graves buried on the ground here, so Kohanim are allowed to come here without worrying that they're going to be defiled by walking into a cemetery.
And you have, parts of the cemetery. I mean, I guess it's different cemeteries, each section left and right to you.
There are 13 different burial societies. Each one has their sections. This is we're at the tip of the iceberg right here. The cemetery actually wraps all around the mountain, so we're just like at the edge of it right now. But there's estimated to be over 150,000 Jews buried in this cemetery.
Is there a reason why they chose this mountain to bury everybody on?
Yes, there actually is. So there is a tradition that this is the first place that the resurrection of the dead will happen.
That cemetery is essentially prime real estate for being resurrected
throughout the generations. This was the one place for Jews to be buried. Yeah.
And you have obviously this amazing view of the Dome of the Rock, the Temple Mount right in front of us, Al-Aqsa Mosque over there.
It's not unusual that you'll find throughout Israel churches and mosques that are placed on top of Jewish holy sites. This is no exception to that rule. We're going to see soon what the Jewish significance of this place is. We mentioned it earlier that Jews were not, in ancient times, were not buried in the ground as they are today. The Talmud describes the method of burial was that they took the person, the deceased, and they put them into a burial cave, just like the one that's behind us over here. After approximately a year, the body would decompose. They would come back and they would gather up the bones and they would place them into custom-made boxes known as ossuaries or ossuaries. What we're looking at here are actually those Jewish boxes that were used for burial from the times of the Second Temple.
No, these right here?
Those. And the small ones over there are probably for children. The larger ones are for adults. These were gathered from all over the Mount of Olives for demonstration purposes. They do not have bones in them today.
Were there bones ever in them? Were there bones found? Oh, really?
Bones in all of them. But,
wow.
But unfortunately, bones are not collector's items, and these boxes are very valuable antiquities. So they often were stolen and sold off in the black market. So basically what they would do is just dump the bones and then sell the boxes. So these boxes don't have bones in them today, but these were used at one time. If you take somebody that has never met a Jew, doesn't know anything about Jewish history, you pick them out of New Guinea and you show them a picture of the Temple Mount. It looks like there's mosques there, and they'll say it looks like a Muslim site. It doesn't look like a Jewish site. I said that all you have to do is come a couple hundred feet eastward and you have 3,000 years of Jewish history, 3,000 years, hundreds of thousands of Jews that are buried here from all the generations, clear proof that there is a Jewish connection to this place. This is what all of the Mount of Olives, the whole cemetery, looked like when we came back after the Jordanian destruction in 1967. So if you take a look over the wall, you'll see this part of the cemetery that is in a destroyed state.
This is the Chalabi.
This is the old Chalabi section.
The old Chalabi section. Chalabi, if you guys don't know, is the Jewish Syrian ethnic. That's the ethnic classification. How old would these graves be?
100, 150 years old. This is not an ancient section, but it's an older section.
So you guys know, 150-year-old ancient Jewish cemetery of Syrian Jews. We definitely colonized the place in 1948. There were no Jews here before. Don't believe anything anyone says. And there was another one.
We're going to be heading
right
up
over there.
That's a smaller Jewish community, which we're going to be looking. That's the best view of the Temple Mount that you can get. So
amazing.
Heading up there.
So Josh, we are entering a neighborhood right now that I got to be honest with you. I've traveled a little bit through the West Bank, and there's wires hanging, there's metal bars and rafters everywhere, and there's actually like signs in Arabic with, I don't know, I guess it looks like wedding pictures of a Palestinian family. Where are we? What is this place?
So the Arabs refer to this neighborhood as Atur. This Jewish neighborhood is called Beit HaChoshen. It's one of the 5 Jewish communities on the mountain, the smallest of them. As I mentioned before, 8 Jewish families in this building, 1 Jewish family in the building next to, 1 down below. And
is it mixed? There's Arabs and Jews living here?
So this building is all Jewish. That building, like I said, there's 1 Jewish family, so the rest of them are Arab, and the one down below, also 1 Jewish family, the rest of them are Arab.
Wow.
But even if you look at the name of the street, we mentioned the Chalabi section. This is called the Chalabim because this leads down into the cemetery, into the Jewish Syrian section of the cemetery.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
We're entering a synagogue right now, inside of the neighborhood. Wow. What a view.
So we have a unique custom here. There's a universal custom around the world for Jews that on Friday nights they say a special prayer called Lecha Dodi. So they turn around either to the back or to the doors of the synagogue when they're saying this prayer. Here in this synagogue, we don't turn around. Why is that? Because in front of us is God's presence. And we don't turn our backs to God's presence. So we stay standing forward. I think this is the only synagogue like this in the world.
Amazing. You have like a direct line of sight. I don't think I've ever seen the courtyard of...
We're going to see it better from the roof.
That's a crazy view.
This is the best view of the Temple Mount that you can get without being on the Temple Mount, of course. We are looking from the top of one of the highest mountains, the Mount of Olives. In Psalms, King David says, Yerushalayim harim saviv la, that Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains. So we're on one of those mountains that is overlooking the ancient city of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. This is the best view, like I said, that you can get of it, and it gives you a unique perspective on what I was describing earlier as far as where the temple was and what it looked like and where it soon will be. This is all part of the plans. By the way, your audience will like this. When I speak to groups, I often ask them what the natural disaster in the country that they're coming from is, because everybody has different things: tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, whatever it is. The natural disaster that we have here in Israel is the earthquake.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Jordanian Waqf. I was hoping you were going to say that.
That's not a national disaster. That's not something that we can easily deal with. The earthquake we can't easily deal with.
Okay.
The earthquake. We are actually on two faults that run through Israel, and one of them runs right through the Mount of Olives here. This is actually brought down in the prophecies of Zechariah, where it says that in the future there will be a huge earthquake, and the Mount of Olives is going to be split into two. It's going to run through. Now this, approximately every 100 years, every century, we have a major earthquake. The last one was in 1927. You can do the math. We're pretty close to the next one. We're overdue any day now. The last one was in 1927, and its epicenter was in Jericho. It came right through the Mount of Olives here, right through the Temple Mount, destroyed Al-Aqsa Mosque. We can show you pictures. I can send you the pictures of it. But basically, the whole roof on the right side of Al-Aqsa, which is the black dome on the left, that whole roof to the right of that was knocked off, and it exposed these huge cedar beams, which were carbon dated to 2,000 years ago. They were actually beams used to build the temple, and they're still there today. They're actually, you can also see them in other places on the Temple Mount, but those you clearly were able to see after the 1927 earthquake. And we believe that another earthquake is overdue, so we're always waiting. We're always make sure that the ground's not shaking over here, because we know that it's coming.
Can I do some Jewish conspiracy with you real quick?
Go for it.
What is there to what would happen?
Jews do not control the weather.
I know. China does, though.
Maybe.
What would be done if there? Okay, let's answer it based on what your community would say. The people who are living here.
I don't represent the community or people.
Okay, well, what do you think? Okay, represent yourself. Even better, actually. What is there to be done if there's an earthquake that somehow destroys Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock? Is that, you think, some sort of prophecy for the rebuilding of the Third Temple? Is that something that is believed?
There will be an earthquake. Right? The prophecies, well, I should say it in a different way. All positive, our tradition is that all positive prophecies have to come true. There's not a choice. If it's a negative prophecy, then it's up to us whether it comes true or not. Meaning, if we're able to repent and we're able to do the right thing, then bad prophecies don't have to happen, but good prophecies all do. Now, whether the splitting of this mountain and that leading to a rebuilding of the temple is a good prophecy or a bad prophecy, I'll let everybody make their decision as to what that is.
So this is both a synagogue and a communal building where people are living, right? Like an apartment complex. And
it is primarily a communal, a residential area. Within the residential building, we also have a small synagogue.
The predominant makeup of the community, is it Orthodox Jews? Is it secular Jews? Do you not even like those classifications?
Definitely don't like those classifications.
Okay.
Jews are Jews. There are Jews that keep more and ones that keep less, and there's no perfect person in the world. So we're all practicing Jews. We're all practicing and proud Jews.
How does one gain access to live here, to move into this neighborhood? If somebody is watching this video and wants to be a part of your community, how does that work?
So our communities are full to capacity. There's a long waiting list to get into them. So
really?
You're not going to be able to get into them.
Wow.
That having been said, we are constantly purchasing new properties and trying to expand our communities. Like I said, when I moved here to Israel almost 40 years ago, there were no living Jews on the Mount of Olives. Today there are 5 communities, so it's definitely moving in the right direction. I suspect, I was once giving a tour to a non-Jewish journalist who was doing a piece on the desecration of graves here. And she asked me, what do I envision seeing in the cemetery in another couple of years? So I said, I expect to only see apartment buildings. And she looked at me confused, and I tried to explain to her the concept of the resurrection of the dead, and she looked at me a bit more confused. But we don't expect there to be graves here much longer, and it's all going to be populated soon.
So there's a story to be told about the selling of this apartment building to the pesky Jews.
Right, well, there is actually coming, it still exists on the books today in Jordan, but it was the law here for 19 years and continues to be the unwritten law that any Arab that sells their property to a Jew gets the death penalty, so they're killed. And usually they are smart, and they sell their properties and move to nice places in Europe and America and live happily ever after. But
they leave the country.
Right. If they stay in the country, usually they eventually they catch up with them, and usually they knock them off. I've unsuccessfully treated many Arabs that have been killed, including the owners of this property over here.
So that building, the owner of it was killed after selling it?
His whole family was killed, yes.
His whole family? Oh my God.
If you actually go down into what the Jews call Silwan, into Ir David, and look across the way to what's known as Kfar HaTeimanim, the Yemenite village, which is the mountain leading from the city of David up to the Mount of Olives, you will see murals on the houses of eyes. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you been down there?
No.
Maybe it's worth taking a drive down there. You'll see hundreds and hundreds of eyes painted on the sides of huge eyes painted on the sides of the building. They look very cute, but it's actually quite nefarious. The reason they put these eyes on the sides of the building is in order to be a warning sign to the Arab neighbors that they're constantly being watched, and if they sell their property to a Jew, they're going to be killed. So Big Brother's always watching.
Wow, that sounds like some pretty racially discriminatory laws, no?
Like I said, it's not a law today because Israel has reunified the capital in 1967, and it was annexed all of Israel, all of Jerusalem as part of the capital city of Jerusalem, and all is under Israeli.
But Walla Josh, it might even be worse because it's not by the government, it's by the people now.
Right.
It's being enforced by their society.
So each neighborhood here is controlled by another terrorist organization. My neighborhood is controlled by Fatah, by the Fatah organization. There's other neighborhoods here controlled by Hamas and by the Islamic Jihad. Each one has their group that's controlling them, and unfortunately, that's temporarily the world that we're living in over here until we manage to remove our enemies and bring back all the Jews around the world.
Pleasure to meet you, Josh.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks so much.
Be well.
See you around. That's the end of that adventure. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, Klats.
If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to monetarily support the channel. Some of the best ways to support me happen to be PayPal, buy me a coffee, or joining our Patreon community. Links to them can be found in the pinned comments or the description of every one of my videos. Joining my Patreon community gives you access to exclusive content and the chance to talk to me on our Discord server. I also go live almost every day here on YouTube. And after my live streams, me and my patrons from Patreon head over to our Discord server to an exclusive after-party hangout. Your support is the only way that I can keep creating the content that you love watching for me. Thank you.